Anyway, so we turned up at Malaysia, Charlotte, and there's only like a handful of garages. Then behind the garages, there were like these metal like huts. And like we was as low as the log could get, like a small 125 team. And we were in these metal huts, like talk about no air conditioning. Like it was, at the time I was 18. And first time I'd been abroad to Spain was when I was 16. So to be in Malaysia and it's like 600 degrees, as you know what it's like there, and you're in a metal hut, you're like, my God, this is rough and ready.
Hello, and welcome to Last on the Brakes, the MotoGP podcast with myself, Matt Dunn.
And me, From Wild. I remembered to say my name.
Exactly. And you were just listening to our guest for today's show, and that was the 2003 World Superbike champion and esteemed TV pundit and commentator Neil Hodgson, talking about how it feels to be an 18-year-old in the 125cc World Championship at Malaysia, when only 2 years earlier you went on your very first foreign holiday to Spain. As this week, what are we discussing, Fran?
We are discussing a fair few different things this week. I think it's a little bit more kind of, you take a topic, you run with it. We've ended up somewhere else. I think there's a good few little subjects in there. One of the biggest things we wanted to ask is how Neil has seen the Paddock change in terms of the riders and everything about it in the last sort of 10, 20 years. And also his transition from being rider to being in the media, and how that's kind of changed his perspective. I think there's a good few things on that as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what else? We got Paddock English as well. That's a good topic.
So the things that have changed in the last 20 years or so, it's not the standard things. This is not a podcast for those of you hoping we're going to talk about the technical changes and go, Neil, what did you make of when MotoGP changed to 800cc or anything like that? It's not that kind of thing. It is about how MotoGP has developed its own little language or dialect of English almost, the introduction of rider assistants, and how glamorous some of them are,
and apparently some very strong feelings on them as well from our
absolutely. And talk about the places that we go as well, and a couple of other things. The best phrase which probably comes out of the podcast, although I don't know whether you just did it in the intro this is take 2 of the intro, by the way, sorry. Diamonds in the rough. How do you find them these days? Is it even possible? Well, it seems as though it's a bit of a gamble, really. But you have to wait near the end of the episode for that one.
Yeah, a little bit on that. I mean, the obvious one that you probably already know we might mention a little bit, Fabio Quartararo. I apologise if you can hear the magpies that have decided to have a fight right outside my window. Good. But there will be, Fabio Quartararo, how he's changed the game a little bit in terms of looking for talent.
Not just the fact that he's awesome on the track, but the other ways which he's changed things up, I suppose.
Exactly. And I think a good few little snippets here, and hopefully a good few laps, especially for those of you who may follow MotoGP on BT Sports coverage. I think, lots of personality, lots of little random snippets.
And if you are wondering a bit more about who Neil is, because I'm not sure where some of you guys are listening from, do make sure to go and look him up, because Neil's a real sort of star of the sport. Started thinking about him as a guest really because of at the start of lockdown, lots of Superbike riders and MotoGP riders, especially for the English fraternity, started doing the Rob McElnay memories trend on Twitter, and Neil's got a fair good few of those as well. And Neil, a real star of World Superbikes and even Grand Prix, as you'll hear later on. And now, of course, just a really popular TV pundit and whatnot. A couple of things though, before we do get fully started, is a couple of swear words here and there in the episode this week.
You've made this sound like a pre-roller coaster safety briefing now. Just a couple of things, guys.
Strap in, because there are a few naughty words here and there coming in the episode. And the other thing which I sort of wanted to just mention before, without waffling too much in our intros, the sort of things we wanted to ask Neil about was how his perception of the MotoGP paddock and what it's like for maybe people who aren't too used to being in it. Now, myself and Fran, relatively inexperienced. We've got a couple of years under our belt now, travelling in our respective positions in Dorna. But our ideas of what MotoGP is like from the inside is very different to someone who's literally seen it, done it, got the t-shirt, done so many immersive jobs in it. So Neil's perspective of that is really, really, really unique insight.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that was a cool little topic there. And as always, at the end we'll have Kenwood Quickfire, some word association, a couple of funny ones there, as you may expect. But yeah, let us know what you think. What's your preconception about MotoGP, or what it's like? What do you think when you kind of think about going in the paddock? Maybe you've been in the paddock. Is that your experience of it too?
I think that Crow's trying to actually let you know what he thinks, to be honest.
Maybe it is, yeah. I don't know. I seem to be under some sort of Stanley Kubrick situation.
Before we do get underway, though, we want to just address a little bit of a change that you're going to see come into the podcast in the coming weeks. By the way, not going to give too much away, but you'll see up to now we've only just had members of the MotoGP paddock, past and present, as guests on the podcast.
We have.
We've decided to expand the reach of the podcast to speak to some people in the broader MotoGP community. So there might not be people who are regulars at the races working in there. There might be sports stars from other sports who are just genuine, massive fans of MotoGP, like you and I, and everybody listening. And
I like you when you said like you and I, like we are also massive sports stars.
Yeah, no. But
I
yes,
am famously athletic.
we want to get a few more perspectives and some relatable. We're trying to pick people who've got relatable stories to the MotoGP paddock as well, to really give some good context. So maybe if we can't hear the context of those stories in MotoGP themselves, hear a version from a different sport instead. Which should be really good fun. We've got a few people lined up already. Keep my lips tight now of who they might be, just before we actually have a second
my
film them.
lips sealed.
Yes, that's one. So yeah, there'll be a little bit change. It won't be like that every single episode, but for now, Neil Hodgson, you and me talking about MotoGP paddock and lots of just nattering and jokes, really having a good time. Basically, that's all it is. Also, shout out to Neil for wearing the 69 shirt, by the way. Really nice to have someone. Neil, wanted to bring you on the podcast then, because one, you got your own, and I think they've been doing some great interviews, been really good listening, but also sort of in the lockdown, everything, watching Rob Mack memories, sort of had so much nostalgia about old BSB and World Superbike days and everything. I thought we got to get you on at some point. But today wanted to really chat with you, not necessarily about your career and everything, but more about how the sport's changed over the last 20 years or so that you've been in it, and mainly sort of things that you've picked up which you wish you knew at the start of your career, and things which you wish people coming into the sport now, rider or media, whoever, would know before coming in. So first things first, I want to ask a very, very broad question, which we can just have a discussion around, which is about what's one main thing that you've seen change in the sport since you've been in it, since maybe you left being a rider to turn to the media side. One thing that really stands out for you.
Okay. Everyone's so much more prepared now. You know, it's like young kids come into the sport as professionals, don't they? You know, obviously we see it, don't we? You know, 16, 17-year-old kids that are the finished article, where it's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, me, you were learning by your mistakes still, bouncing around and doing, making mistakes. Yeah. I think that's the standout now, because of the way the sport's evolved, and let's say the junior side of motorcycle racing, it really improved. So by the time you've worked your way through the junior ranks, and if you're good enough and you arrive at Moto3, Grand Prix racing at 16, 17, you're a polished diamond already, aren't you? You know that it's not about one lap. You've got to work on your race setup. And I just used to be the king of qualifying, because I just used to go really fast on one lap and then had no race setup. But it took me years to suss it out. Just using that as one example. So that's the standout.
It is pretty crazy, isn't it, now, when you see kids, even in, I've done a few commentary sessions for the CEV, and even at that age, and they're 12 and 13, some of them in the European Talent Cup, they're framing themselves in the interview, and it's hello, and you're what is happening? It's great in a lot of ways, especially when there is so much media. and it's so much easier to say something that maybe you didn't mean it in a certain way, or like get stressed and go a bit overboard after a race. So if they are more aware, it's good. But it's also like, what is happening? You're like, you should be like, hello, and then go and play with some toys, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
do you know
so
what?
true, though.
Yeah, one of my favourite experiences of that actually was Nakari Natarat Puvapat, and it was a pre-season test in Jerez, I think 2018, and I went to go and do his interview with him in Thai. It was like some greeting for the Thai Grand Prix, and bless him, I collared him just outside of his lorry, and I said, Chip, can we just do a quick interview? And he went, yeah, sure. He then sprinted away, and I was like, what? I turned to the camera and saying, what did I say? He said, yes, right? And he went, yeah. And then next thing you know, he comes in, his hair is slicked right back, and he's got a comb right next to him. He said, sorry, I had to do my hair beforehand. I was like, what? Okay. And he looked the absolute bee's knees, but it was just so funny. That was this sort of instant thing, like, I've got to look right on point and everything for a big interview, which I guess, well, I mean, Neil, you were always a bit of a, you looked after your looks back in the day with those frosted tips and everything.
Yeah, I was ahead of my time, Matt. I was getting, the hair was always, how is it looking? Is it? The problem now with the hair is, because obviously it's falling out and it's going so thin, I'm now having to, like, get it thick around the sides and, like, we call it the Keith Ewan, and, like, just try and gather it in the middle, and it just looks good, like you've got a full head, even if you don't.
Well, I feel like you said earlier you couldn't see my camera, but it's probably a good thing because my hair at the moment is resembling something out of the Lord of the Rings, to be honest, than anything else at the moment.
Perfect.
Yeah, it is. Kill. Yeah, it is normal, to be fair.
Well, looks and Nakari Natarat Fuvapat aside, I'm impressed you can still say that name so correctly and quickly, Matt.
Hours. By the way, so was I.
Yeah. So obviously that's something that's changed a lot with, like, younger riders. What about what you've kind of learnt from making that transition then? We'll go back to, like, being a rider then and now a little bit more. But you had to kind of start a second career in the media. Obviously, you are who you are. You've got amazing achievements, knowledge and everything else. But you started doing a lot of things from scratch again and learning. What's that kind of like to have to do that again when you've got to really elite level? And then when you leave that, you kind of go back to kind of feeling your way through something so new.
Yeah, it's hard. It really is, because right in the beginning, I'd done quite a bit of TV bits and bats over the years, did some bits for Eurosport, but I was just a pundit, so I was just answering questions. So when I started with BT, it was more of a reporter, pundit, a bit of everything, and that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And it made me feel quite bad then as an ex-rider to think, God, I was hard on some people, some reporters. Could have, like Gav, for example. Like Gav used to have to interview me, and I'd give him the runaround. I'd be that guy, like, oh yeah, come back in half an hour, and I'd be like, oh, forget that. So it's horrible when riders do that to me now, because it's annoying, isn't it? You guys know what it's like. So, but yeah, a lot to learn, but. In a way, I was extremely lucky because I got in at BT year one. So we all started together, and I was surrounded by experienced people that straight away the whole team sort of clicked anyway. So we all got on. So everyone helped everybody. And, like, obviously you know what Gavin Emmett's like. He's amazing. Like,
yeah,
Gavin,
just consummate professional.
Exactly. And you can throw any curveball at him, and I've seen it all over the years when, you know what live TV is like, it never goes according to plan. But I've watched Gav in awe, and what's happened all through my career, my TV career, so I've been doing it for 7 years, lots of my friends would say, you should present, you come across well, you should present. And I'm like, you've no idea how hard it is to do. It's all I can say is it's like juggling 6 balls, and then occasionally somebody will take one out and then put 2 in, and you watch Susie Perry's exactly the same. The pros, and I watch them, and I think they're at world championship level at what they can do with their career, and with presenting, and I'm a club racer still. That's how hard it is. It would take me years to get to their level of being able to juggle 6 balls. Because still, when someone's talking to me in my ear, and I'm interviewing someone, it still puts me off a little bit. And I watch Gav and Susie when they're on open talkback, so they've got 5 voices in their ear whilst they're having a conversation and never missing a count.
Yeah, well, you know,
that does blow my mind. That does, especially when you've got someone just chatting at you, and yet they're just talking as though there's no one and nothing else in the world, and it's just the show. I did one British Talent Cut commentary, and it was with the Eurosport guys in my ear, and it's the first time ever because we don't have that. And even on something like that, and I was with Steve Day as well, so like I'm not very experienced at that kind of stuff at all, but he obviously perfect captain of the ship. Even then, I was sat there like I can't even focus, and I didn't have to be on camera. It was just talking.
Yeah.
It blows my mind how you managed to do that. Do you find yourself ever still being like shut up, or like accidentally reacting to stuff?
It's the accidentally reacting. Even last year I was on the grid, and Kevin Brown, my boss on site, like the executive producers, in my ear, and he said something like, I can't remember what it was, like, don't go to Cal, he's gone for a wee, right? Just completely out of the blue, I looked at the camera and went, all right then. I was like, oh my God, actually no one can hear that, and it's just good old live TV. No one spotted it, no one even said anything, but I just thought, oh my God, I've just answered to Kevin directly down the camera.
Yeah.
And so. Did
you find like there's that thing where if I'm trying to think of the situation, but if you're on a call with somebody, or you're watching some TV, but you're also talking to someone on the phone, and you've got one ear on the TV, and then you just accidentally repeat exactly what somebody says on the TV to the person on the phone. That's what my perpetual fear of having talkback is like, because whenever I do things like MotoGP commentary or whatever, we don't have that talkback. We have a running order. We know the score of what happens on the international TV, and I think it would take me years to actually fully get around it, and it seemed impossibly difficult.
Yeah, and you get out of practice with it. So when we go back to racing in anger, we'll go back to our normal jobs. I'll be rusty again. I know I will. And one of the things that happens sometimes is I'll interview a rider, live on the grid. I'll ask a question, and as they're answering, then obviously my producer then would say, right, so after this, go to, but then I can't hear the answer. So there's a few times, and then I realise they've stopped talking, and I'm like, shit, I didn't even hear the answer, you know what I mean? And then there's a pause. And so that's why sometimes it's awkward. But I think a lot of the times it just feels 10 times worse than it looks. I've had horrible experiences and then watched them back and thought, actually, you can't really tell that much, but you're your own worst critic.
You think it's like an absolute nightmare in the middle of it, though, don't you? Yeah. Even like the little things, and it's like, oh God, like I'm going to get fired. I'm going to have to emigrate to like Papua New Guinea, and everything's over now. And then you watch it back, and it's just like one tiny blip in the background, and no one noticed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you've got to be hard on yourself, because that's how you improve. It's no different to racing. If you're not hard on yourself, that means you're going to be satisfied with finishing 10th every week and go, oh, it's good fun, this. You've got to sort of self-produce, haven't you? And go, I need to be better than that. That was poor, And the first year, I was very, very rough around the edges. Thankfully, 7 years in now, I've got more brain. I can use more of my capacity of my brain, where I'm not like, oh God, oh. And I spoke to Simon Crafer a lot when he first started, because I could see exactly what he was going through in his first year, thrown in the deep end, and it was so hard. And everyone just thinks you're going to be a pro at it straight away. And Simon's great, isn't he? As you know better than anyone. But that first year was hard for him, because you're thrown in the water and you literally you sink or swim. But the problem is you sink or swim on live TV.
Yeah, you don't get that time to warm up or anything like that, do you? Really, it's just like dive in, straight go. What to ask you at that point about when you first came back to MotoGP, because obviously your spell riding in MotoGP wasn't quite what I suppose you would have hoped it would have been. But what was your impression when you came back to MotoGP with BT Sport? The people in the paddock, the atmosphere, how everything had changed? Because I guess you hadn't, prior to that period, since you were in it, you hadn't actually spent that much time in the MotoGP paddock.
No, I hadn't been at all, really. So from 2004. So then the first years, 10 years, exactly 10 years. I was shocked. Two things stood out, really. One, the level of professionalism, it had gone up another, 10 years, I'm like, wow. how impressive it is. That was a shock. But also, the other big shock was, I don't want this to contradict myself, but how friendly everybody was. How still open, and it was the paddock. And obviously, there's a time when people are really stressed and they can be off, but you you sense when it's the right time. But in general, how just welcoming everybody was, and it was nice to be back, because I was more of a Superbike guy. I mean, in my early career, I did 125 Grand Prix for a couple of years, and I did a season under 500. So I'd spent time in that paddock. But I don't know. It was much warmer than I thought it would be. Because from the outside, when you're looking in, you think, oh, I bet it's really sterile and people aren't friendly and they're all superstars. The only superstars, and I know you'll appreciate this as well,
is you.
Apart from me and Gav, the only superstars are it's the entourage. The riders are all right. It's the idiot sort of, what it's like. Some of the riders have got a big old entourage and they walk around like they own the paddock and they've got big egos. I've no time for them. That sort of annoys me a little bit. But apart from that, the team managers and riders and team owners are great.
I'd say that's true as well, from being a fan and then looking in when you see the paddock from a distance, from the grandstand. It's like, oh my God, this crazy locked little environment of everything, and you do expect it to be sterile and so professional to a fault, where it's not about getting stuff done well, it's about posing and doing this and that. But when you do actually get behind the scenes, it's really different, isn't it? As well, I came from World SBK for I think 5 or 6 months. I was there with Dorna, and a few people are like, oh, MotoGP, it's a bit different. And I think the only difference really in my experience is just media debriefs are a bit more kind of it's this time, and if you don't come at this time, you can go home.
No, what you said about that's actually something which I wrote down, because just before this I was like, it would be actually quite useful to think about some things which I didn't know about MotoGP before I actually joined and started working in it. And that was one of the things you think it's because it is obviously the comparison to Formula One, you think it's super posy. Everybody's in there in their suits and they're all there Gucci and this and that, and they're all probably too good for you. But it's not as polished and as posy as you would think at all, and everyone's very welcoming. But on that, something else which we've had I think Fran and I have had a discussion about it before, is how everyone's very welcoming to an extent, but you only really feel part of, sort of truly welcomed by everybody else, when you go to a real far away race. In your Argentina, America, or Sepang, somewhere which your normal, inadvertently, European lot wouldn't go to. And that's when you really start to see a difference in how people sort of address you, and actually even it's easier to actually then go to debriefs with some riders because their press officers are more friendly with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think what happens on the flyaways is everyone's guard's down a little bit more. The paddocks aren't as busy, are they? You can get around. So you see riders because of that, and they don't have the big motorhomes to sort of hide in. So I much prefer the flyaways for the access to the riders. It's so easy then, isn't it? You can really get to chat to them casually. And they, it's they're sort of bored as well. It's a long weekend. There's a lot of hanging around for the riders as well. So they're always happy to have a chat, aren't they? That's what I've found anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that. And I think Matt mentioned it as though it's almost like when you go on that first school trip together, and it kind of just it creates some sort of bond, not like you've been through some trauma together, but whenever you do something like that, it is kind of strange for a lot of people, this idea of this huge load of people who live in completely different places meet up every 2 weeks for 4 days, live in each other's pockets, and then go home. So I guess, I mean, I really like the flyaways as well, for the places that we go, and for that kind of just, I don't know, it feels like its own little world then, but in a good way.
Yeah, I'm sick of Argentina, though. They could get rid of that round. Oh,
not a fan.
No, the first year when we went up to Termas, it was quaint sort of little village. It's going back 30 years. And now it's 'cause it is a bit of a pain to get to, isn't it? And I don't know, the food's pretty rubbish there, even though like you'd normally think the food in Argentina would be amazing. So yeah, that's one that they could get rid of.
I feel like
I don't like.
You need to try the little empanadas in the square. This is the secret to Argentina.
Is it?
Is
All
the
right.
guys with the little ovens in the square in Termes. They're like 20p each.
Well, that appeals to me.
Yeah, they're not bad. I gotta say. I mean, it was an ultra cheap dinner. I mean, it's a bit too much pastry, and they're not quite Cornish pasties, but they're still pretty damn good.
Maybe not an everyday situation.
Yeah.
My problem is, and I'm such a weirdo. I shouldn't think like this, but I'll walk around that square and then I'll look at them cooking the empanadas, and I think my girlfriend's in the background just looking at me, going like,
"What are you saying?"
She thinks I'm such a loser. And I look at these little stands, and it's like when you're in Termes anyway, it's rough around the edges, isn't it? And you look, I'm like, they haven't cleaned that, they haven't washed their hands for weeks, because it's filthy, innit? Because it's proper rough and ready. You're like, there's no freezer or cooler box, and they're pulling out that chicken. That's going to give me, I'm going to be ill.
Yeah, well,
I shouldn't think like that, but.
No, but to be fair, I suppose you are probably thinking like that now, because I mean, when everybody goes back, it's going to be rubber gloves everywhere and masks and all that, isn't it? Really,
Even more, yeah.
Yeah, you might be more conscious about it now, but yeah, no, I can see what you mean, and it is a bit rough around the edges. One of the images which I couldn't get out of my head is how many people in Argentina seem to have these amazing 2017 to 2019 Superbikes, and they're riding around on them in shorts, t-shirts, and flip-flops, no helmets, and they're giving it the beans as well. They are nuts.
Well, it's. I always say, whenever you see anybody on a big bike or any motorcycle in a pair of shorts and flip-flops, I always go, spot the person who's never crashed a motorcycle. You know what I mean? Because it's that one little crash, you will never, ever ride a bike like that again, because, you know what I mean? Because you know how... and it's nothing of a crash you need. A little... Someone pulls out on you, you go down and you've skinned your leg, like... Oh, don't bear thinking about, does it?
Grim.
It really doesn't. Okay, for the interest of impartiality, I'm going to give a quick ode to Termes de Rio Hondo, because I love it. Yeah. Other than that flight with the connection we normally do, Barcelona, Madrid, Buenos Aires, and then you got to get to Termes. But like you said, it does feel a little bit like it's so crazy and it's such a small town and it gets completely taken over. It does feel like a kind of, obviously not real nostalgia for me quite, but it feels quite nostalgic, like it's something that you get in a Nick Harris blog kind of vibe.
How many times have you been?
I definitely love that. I think, have I been 3 or twice?
I've been twice.
Maybe twice then, because I don't think I've been when you weren't there.
See, you've not been enough.
Yeah.
I was good for 2 visits.
No, I can understand that, especially the flights there as well. I mean, that's why I want to ask you these things, because we have our, for example, for us, we have a very fresh-faced view of a lot of things, very starry-eyed view of the paddock and everything still. But someone who's been there, I mean, that's on the Argentina note is what I wanted to ask you. We view that as how it would have been back in the 90s, racing, whether it be a World Superbike race or a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Is the vibe like that, or is it different still?
No. I mean, Termes it's a bit of a unique place, and racing wasn't like that. You know what I mean? Even in the 90s, in the early 90s, when I was in '93, I started Grand Prix racing, 125 Grand Prix racing. The only place that felt a bit like that was when we went to Malaysia, because the Shah Alam circuit, which was the old circuit they used to race on, was really rough around the edges, and I went there. Like, it was me and my dad went there, because we I won the British Championship the year before, so I was like a young kid, and my dad's like, well, we've just got to do, no point in staying defending it, you've got to try and ride against better people, let's go Grand Prix racing. You could more then, it was easier to do that, but it took a lot of effort. And anyway, so we turned up at Malaysia, Shah Alam, and there's only like a handful of garages. Then behind the garages, there were these metal like huts. And like we was as low as the log could get, like a small 125 team, and we were in these metal huts. Like, talk about no air conditioning. Like, it was, it was. I'd only gone at the time. I was 18, and first time I'd been abroad to Spain was when I was 16. So to be in Malaysia and it's like 600 degrees, as you know what it's like there, and you're in a metal hut, you're like, my God, this is rough and ready, you know. So.
It's pretty crazy to think about, even at that time. Like, I think the first time I went abroad was like mid-90s, and I'm 31 now. And even then, like, going to Spain was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm basically Indiana Jones. But then you're like, when you're 18, you just like, okay, you and your dad go to Malaysia and race. Yeah. It must have been quite a crazy experience having come from the British Championship.
It was like it's funny. I've got a picture on the wall saying "Dream Big," and I just, as you said that, I looked over at it, and weirdly, I just thought, do you know what? It was a dream. It was a dream because I was a builder. So I left school, no qualifications, and I was a builder, and I did that for 3 years. But in my last year, I won the British Championship. So then, right, you're gonna have to stop being a builder. Thank God. And so we went Grand Prix racing, but I couldn't believe. All I wanted to do was ride my bike, obviously. But then as soon as I'd finish, I'd have not even a 5-minute debrief because I didn't really know what I was talking about. So I'd go, yeah, I'm still loading the track, Dad. And then I just wanted to go out and watch the 500s because it was Schwantz and rainy and, you know, doing. And I was like out on the service road, like, or hanging around the paddock staring at my heroes and just waiting outside the back of their garage. And then they come out and they go, "You all right, mate?" Yeah. You know, like, just trying to get them to look at me and just, you know.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, exactly. So
brutal.
It's so strange, you know, when looking back, you think, how lucky was I, you know, at 18, 19 years old to be able to do that. So
it is pretty crazy, memories. Isn't it? Yeah. Do you feel like sometimes you have that kind of effect on a few people now? Do you see it in reverse with some of the younger guys you interview and they're like, ooh?
Not really. No, I don't. But obviously it doesn't bother me. It's just funny. Like occasionally when someone, it was the saying this to I might even be my girlfriend, weirdly. We were talking about something. We were talking about retirement. And I said, one of the weird things about when you retire from racing, Neil Mackenzie told me, actually, the year I retired in 2010. And he said, honestly, Neil, it's not as bad as you'd think. And he said, you know, the funny thing is, he said, people will seem to only remember your good races. People just want to come up to you. And he said, it's quite weird because you look at your career, I had 20 years, you know, and out of that 20 years, maybe 10 were good, 10 were average. But people just want to talk about the really good parts of your career. So much so that, funnily enough, people often come up to me and say, oh, yeah, you know, I've got a great career, 2-time world champion. And you're like, well, 1 time, you know, but it's like, I think people think I was better than I was, weirdly. So it's just funny, isn't it?
That is pretty funny. Well, no, it's like everyone. I mean, you're probably the only one who really remembers all the bad days and stuff, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Personally, I remember waiting to get Neil Hodgson's autograph when I think you were in AMA, but you went and visited a BSB race. So I can't remember what year it was, but I was still young enough that when you went 2 years in a row to this same BSB race and did an autograph session. And I went first year, got your autograph, and I came back next year, and I said, "Hi, Neil," and you went, "Oh, I remember you," and I was so chuffed for the rest of that. I mean, you probably were lying, but you...
No, Matt, you've got a distinctive look.
Well, maybe, yeah. It's fair enough. But yeah, I can appreciate that. And it made me think, you saying about how you were going around the service roads watching the other riders. Do you think some of the modern Moto3 riders, Moto2 riders, do that enough in terms of appreciating where they are exactly? Yeah,
I do. Obviously, like I said earlier, they're polished, they're professional. But you can imagine, you know, the 16-year-olds coming in, that's exactly what they'll be doing. After they've done their debrief, it won't be a 5-minute debrief, they'll have a more, you know, probably an hour's debrief, but then they'll be out watching Marquez, won't they? 100% they will be. And they need to, because if they want to try and, if we want some people, you know, we need someone to have a go at trying to beat Marc Marquez, don't we? You know, so, and it's going to come from the younger kids, as we've seen with Quartararo. You know, it's funny because Quartararo, when he won the second Junior World Championship, whatever year that was, it could have been about 2015. I don't know what year. I remember
think it was, wasn't it?
I think it was 14.
Was it 14?
Yeah, 14. It makes sense. I think
I'll Google.
15 was his first Grand Prix year. Yeah.
Google it. But I remember at BT we were sat around talking, and having one of those typical hire car chats that we've had a million of them. You know, it's like who's going to take it to Marquez, and I'm like, maybe that Quartararo. I mean, you know, he's so young, but he's clearly so talented to win these 2 Junior World Championships at 13, 14 years old. So
when I look at Quartararo though, another point which I wrote down thinking of how something which I've realised since working in it is how time passes really quickly. 2015 to now feels like no time at all, but it's still 4 or 5 years. It takes a really long time, even for the best up and coming riders, to actually get to the top of it. It takes such a long time, no matter how good they are, because you know Quartararo, he still won that back in 2014, 2015. Which was it, Fran?
2014. Can confirm.
It takes a long time for them to develop to that point. But it seems like in your career, it took even longer. Like not just for you specifically, but like in general.
In my career, I was so quick to progress.
Yeah.
It was, and I was like one of the very few, because you couldn't start road racing until you were 16. That was
right. Yeah.
So the first time I put a set of leathers on, I was 16. So to get in the Grand Prix, I put leathers on at 16 in 1990. In 1995, I was racing 500 GP, so MotoGP. That was almost unheard of. It was really quick. Not because I was super talented. Obviously, I worked hard and I could ride a bike. I'm not saying I couldn't. But a lot of riders around that time, it would take a lot longer. You know, it'd take more like 10 years to get into the main class.
But for you, it was super interesting how your let's talk a little bit about actually that sort of career, because something I always found interesting because I was born in 1994. Sorry to say that, but you were one of, when I was growing up, and BSB guys were my heroes. Like you and Chris Walker in the year 2000. Obviously, that's one of the main years that sticks out in my memory. And then you winning World Superbikes in 2003. It wasn't until about the late first, like maybe 2009, and then when you came back to BSB briefly in 2010 before you retired, that I even realised you had done all that stuff in the 90s as well. I thought you were just built up until you won the BSB crown. I didn't realise you did all that before. I mean, did you feel ready when you went into that time?
Did I feel ready?
Yeah.
No, not at all. It was not even slightly. Like in 93, the year before 92, I won the 125 British Championship. And then I was in Grand Prix racing, and it was all way too much for me. I wasn't even slightly ready at all. And then I had quite a good year, but not if you look at when you're watching young talented kids come up now. If they're not in the top 10, we're all going, and I'm one of them going, it's no good, you know, which I shouldn't do, but I do. And then the next year wasn't great, and then it was like, right, well, you're too big, and I put on way too much weight because I'd started to grow, and it's like, well, it was like, it's like we've got a calculator out. We've got a puzzle to solve. You're too big for 125. Let's get on a 500.
Mm.
Oh shit, that's going to be hard. You know, and you're in the deep end. And I turn up in Australia for the first Grand Prix of the year at Eastern Creek, and with God knows how many laps to go. There must have been at least 5. I saw a blue flag and I thought, shit, I'm going to get lapped. And I'm going down it's a really long straight at Eastern Creek, and I'm flat out on my 500, blinking, like, going, shit, this stuff obviously felt fast. And Mick Doohan came past me, pulled the stickers off my bike, he was that close, tipped into turn 1, which is a ridiculously fast corner. It's like, it's a left-hander, but it's similar to Phillip Island. Obviously, Phillip Island's a right-hander, but it's a fast, scary turn 1. And he just tipped it into there, and I was behind him, and I could smell. He lit it up, so I could see his rear tyre sliding, and I could smell the rubber, and I'm just like this, going, "Fuck, what?" And I remember thinking to myself, genuinely, it was like such a rare moment. I remember thinking, God, I will never be able to do that.
Mm.
And I was right. Obviously, my team Mick at that point was just, he could walk on water and he could float this motorcycle around.
Mm.
Incredible.
It is pretty cool. And it's crazy. Yeah, just thinking that now, just like, well, I'm too big, so I've got to change. It's like just the physics of it is the deciding factor. Like there are a couple of guys like Scott Reddy and Jonas Folger who moved up, maybe not early, but certainly decided to move up because they were getting pretty tall. But you don't really hear of that now, do you? Like MotoGP is never about that kind of side of it or the physics of it. It's all about, which factory pluck from the hype factory immediately. Yeah. It's like, it seems a big rush at the moment to sign people up. What do you think about that and this kind of thing we're seeing at the moment with just, oh no, we have to find someone to beat Marquez, we have to grab him now?
Yeah.
What do you think about that kind of culture it's kind of becoming?
Yeah, I mean, Quartararo spoilt it for everybody, for the older riders, because, you know, obviously when he got signed last year, I was one of them. I don't know what your thoughts were. I like Fabio. I wanted him to do well, but I didn't think he would. You know, I didn't think he would threaten the top 10, to be honest, you know, and I certainly didn't think he'd threaten the top 5, let alone get all those pole positions, nearly win I don't know how many races. But because of that now, people are looking up, as we know, the team managers are going, look, if we stick with Dovi, if we stick with Carl, if we stick with any of the riders above 25, they've had it long enough racing on tarmac. They must have plateaued, so they're not going to all of a sudden find a load of speed, which isn't necessarily right. Riders can still, you know, click with a new team, new bike, new crew chief or whatever, and get some inner confidence by results. So I don't necessarily believe that, but I think that's what the team managers are thinking. So Quartararo gets signed and obviously does amazing things, and now everyone's looking, right, who's the next guy? You know, is it Jorge Martin? Who's the next young kid that's got all the talent?
And without trying to quote your podcast and your own interviews too much to like generate another conversation, though, I think it was the Scott Redding podcast you were talking to him about, and you asked him, is there a way back for you into GP? And he mentioned about, and I remember it briefly as well, when Pramac signed Pecco Bagnaia. When they signed him, when they did, long before he was actually the world champion in Moto2, because they said, you sign him now, he's this amount of money. You sign him when he's Moto2 world champion, when everyone else is going to want him, he's 3 times that. And so it's almost like there's that, it's not just, we need the young guns to train him up to beat Marquez, it's also that, well, the economic side of it as well, where it's, well, we can't keep affording these guys who are 25, 26 years old, who could still develop to beat Marquez. You know, it's a lot cheaper to have the young guys and build them up again.
Yeah. And it's tricky, though, when you look at if I look at the guys in Moto3 from last year, or obviously this year, the start of the year, who's going to beat Marquez? You know what I mean? But that said, I remember Marquez in his very first year, God, he was small. And
that photo from Donington and that podium with like Scott and Mark is amazing.
Bizarre, isn't it? But I remember thinking, oh, he's good, but I didn't think he was Valentino Rossi good. So I'd love to know which is the diamond in the rough in that pack at the moment. There's a couple of that Sergio Garcia or someone like that. Like, I'm trying to think of the young guys. So is it going to be one of them? Like, is just going to go next level, and then it's like, wow, this, you know.
He really impressed me in the Sev, Sergio Garcia, because I think he had a big crash in Valencia, broke his leg, was out for a while. And then the next time he came back was Valencia, and I think he either certainly won one or won both. Just like straight back, like, hi, I'm back, won it. Yeah. And he doesn't give that like kind of, there's no swagger or confidence outwardly, but to just have that when you're that age, to just come back and be like, right, straight back on it, was pretty impressive. But then in the press conference, it's like, literally sat there like this. I did the one when he won in Valencia, and he like could barely even look at me, never mind round the room. So things like that sometimes
is just shy.
Yeah, just so shy. Yeah. And obviously a bit nervous with the English as well. Yeah. But it's like, no, you've achieved something pretty impressive today. Like, come on, give it some posture. But yeah, it is strange, isn't it? Especially like you said with Fabio. There's obviously the CV, amazing. And then this kind of mess of some injuries, some other issues, dip in confidence. and then that win in Barcelona, that's like, this is the guy that was supposed to arrive straight away in 2015. But yeah, I don't know. If you don't know who the Diamonds are, how are we meant to tell?
I feel with Fabio though that he's not just he's created that new generation of, like you said, how everyone's going to look at the young riders again. But he almost tore up the rule book in a way, because he came into the Grand Prix with so much hype. First 5 races before he got injured, he did do super well, and everyone thought, okay, we're on track here, this is what's going to happen. And then just spent the next 3 years in the wilderness before he got that win. But then even when they then signed him up to MotoGP, he wasn't hyped again and saying, hey, this is it, Quartararo's coming to MotoGP, he's going to be amazing. Actually, a lot of people were thinking, what are they doing? He's well too soon. But then he does get in there, and he's amazing. And actually, there isn't anybody else on that, even the same trajectory as that. It's not as if he's created a new rule. That's my perspective, anyways.
Yeah, but the thing, what he's done though, I think, when I say he's made it hard for all the other riders that are in MotoGP, is because he wasn't absolutely stunning in Moto 3. He wasn't absolutely stunning in Moto 2. We saw his talent, like you say, winning in Barcelona, then he won another one, but then got it taken off him, didn't he?
Japan, wasn't it?
Japan, yeah.
But there were 7s, 8s, 12s, 5ths, 3rds, you know what I mean? So it makes you then think, is it a team manager? You're looking at Baldassarres, Bastianinis, Navarro's, although, you know, like, is one of those guys going to, you know, Remy Gardner, are you going to give one of these guys more power, and all of a sudden they just go, oh yeah, that's what I needed, and be like a top 5 MotoGP rider? I talk about, you won't listen to any of my commentary, but I always talk about riders' stock value. It's like one of my sayings. And it's funny, you go like, literally at the start of the year, Quartararo had signed for, I don't know what his fee was, by the way, I don't know, but I manage Alex Lowe's, so I know roughly going rates and all that lot. If he signed and actually got paid, he did well. And if he got 200,000 euros, he did really well. And it was funny, as the year went on, I'd go, my God, Quartararo's stock value has gone up. He's worth 500 grand now. He's worth about $1 million. He's probably worth about 2 million. He's probably worth 5 now. He could be worth 10. And literally, imagine you've started the season, his stock value in MotoGP was 0. And by the end of it, I don't know what he will have signed with Yamaha, but it could be 7 or 8 million. And
it's crazy how quick it changes, isn't it?
What about being his manager, though? I laughed about that. Because what's his manager called? I've forgotten his name. Eric.
Right.
He used to manage Randy Depunier. And Randy Depunier was Alex Lowe's teammate one year. So I got to know Randy and Eric, and they're great guy, you know, really good. Couldn't meet a nicer chap. And I'm so pleased for him, because I'm thinking, fair play, he's taken on Quartararo, you know. Like last year, Illy got paid off him, like a small amount. It's quite easy to work out what 10% of 10 million is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And you know what? During the year, just to make you laugh, this might just be me being. I'm a bit of a cynical weasel. But I'd look at Eric and I think he's got some new clothes.
Really?
He looks smarter as the year went on.
But do you know in that situation who I'm also most pleased for as well? Fabio's Tom. Because
Fabio's Tom.
I mean, no one knows his second name. I think his second name's Mobon or something like that, isn't it? But Fabio's Tom is what everyone calls him. His personal assistant, and he's literally been there since the very start. He is, apart from maybe Fabio's family, he is like the one person who has completely believed in him since the beginning. And to see that pay off, and to see them doing things like going to Formula One, they're like both dressing in like Gucci stuff, which clearly Fabio can afford now, driving around in a McLaren car, which clearly McLaren Barcelona have lent them for a while. And seeing them enjoy that is so great to see. I absolutely love it.
We all love the stories, don't we, when it pays off for like the team rather than the person who swoops in when you're on top and is like, oh yeah, we're best friends now. It's nice and wholesome, I think.
Yeah, it's genuine then. You've got a genuine friendship. Not like, all of a sudden, look who's here, he's got a lot of new mates. You know, it's nice. And that's one of the things that's changed as well. No one had rider assistants. Do you know what? You had a girlfriend, or you did it yourself, or wife. You know what I mean? Like, somebody, you know, would carry your water bottle or your helmet. But it is one of my favourite subjects is the rider assistants, because if you are a rider assistant, like literally just to be assistant, not like a genuinely close friend, like the lad you're just talking about, like let's just say, like obviously use Valentino as the perfect example. If you're at Ross's level, obviously you chose his man. I understand obviously they've been there since day one, but you go, well, what does a rider assistant do? And you go, well, he'll like make sure he's got his drink bottle and towel and sort his helmet out. But when you're at the absolute top, there is a helmet guy anyway. So the rider takes his helmet off, gives it to his rider assistant, who then's job is to pass it to the helmet guy who's sat next to him. You know what I mean? It's like, bloody hell, how much does your assistant get paid? Oh, well, you pay him about 100 grand a year. Bloody hell, can I do that job? I could put someone's gloves on for them and, you know, like, pass me a helmet. Oh, sort that out. You know, it's just...
Sometimes it is pretty funny watching the logistics of that. And like you say, like the helmet guys do go and sort that out for themselves as well. Like we know quite well the guy who does it at the moment for KYT and Suomi, and he goes and sorts that. Doesn't need another individual in the middle, really, sometimes. But
my cynical side would brand it, and this is not like what I would actually call it, but the cynical part of me would say the riders almost create a middleman so they can have like an unconditional friend at their side during the races. Is that sort of way? Do you know what I mean? Because that's it. You've created a middleman to go and take your helmet out and sort your leathers and this and that. But a lot of the rider sort of helpers just seem like a friendly face there, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
People's girlfriends did that though. That's in all through my career. That's how it worked with everybody. You know, that they'd sorted out. The other one that I see, and I won't name names, so there's a few that just make me laugh. There's some funny ones. Bear in mind, I know what a few of these people get paid. There's one guy got paid 70 grand a year. Honestly, bear in mind, imagine it's such a part-time job.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? To get paid 70 grand a year.
23 weekends a year, basically. Yeah,
to carry the helmet, make sure water bottles full. Yeah. But what a lot of them do is they sit there and they during any session and they're taking all the lap times down, every split, writing them down. But when the session finishes, within 5 minutes, you've got a sheet of all your splits and everybody else's. That's another one. You're sort of paying someone to do a job. So that guy's passed the helmet to the helmet guy. That's a non-job. You know, you've carried a water bottle, whoosh, heavy. I tell you what, the rider's got arm pump if he just carries his own water bottle. And he's taken the splits. Well, when you finish the session, one of the people from the team walks in with the timesheet, as you know, at the end of the session going, there's your sheet. All right, cheers. So basically, it's a farce. That said, in a few years' time, if you see me as a rider assistant, don't take the mick out.
Hey, you've got the arms for it. You got the arms to hold all those water bottles and those helmets, that's for sure.
I haven't said it more.
Please do not get your abs out on this podcast.
Oh, I did that. Did you see that one with Scott Redding? It was so embarrassing.
It wasn't. It's like the mistakes when you're presenting. It wasn't as bad as you think it is. It'd be worse if I did it right now. Put it that way.
Oh, it was bad. I was sat right here, and he got his abs out, and I thought, oh wow. He went, let's see yours, and I thought they don't look too bad, you know. And then I realised that they did look really bad, and they're already out, and it's like, oh.
For everyone listening, that was when Neil presented a Ducati course live on their Instagram account and doing a Q&A with Scott, wasn't it?
Okay, I've got to pull you up on Ducati course.
Ducati Corsa. Corsa, yeah, absolutely. You can't say that to an actual Ducati legend sat right there as well, can you?
No, see, I wouldn't know. I just said Ducati course, I think.
I know that you'll disagree with me because I'm an absolute language geek. Like, I'm that person who, like, slightly overdoes the kind of foreign name speaking in English, and I don't like when I do it, but I still have a tendency towards it.
No, but you can't hate the fact that you want to do it correct. You know, we have such a good team at BT, and there's certain things that pushes my buttons, and Gav correcting me, Susie correcting me, or Julian Ryder used to correct me. Those three have corrected me over the years. And it really winds me up. And instead of just thinking, oh, thanks, no, actually, thank you. you tell them how to say the person's name correct. That's great, actually. That doesn't make me look stupid. Thank you. No, my inner voice is like, yeah, all right, I'll say it. I want to say it. That's how I think you should say it. That said, I can't help, but it's Iannone to me. It's not Iannone. I can't say Iannone.
Or to autocorrect, it's Ian 1.
It's Iannone. So I can't say Iannone.
Well, it's not as bad as me when the young mate who's starting in Moto3 this year, Jason Pasquier. I spent, when he did a wildcard last year, I spent a few goes trying to work out how to pronounce it, and still ended up saying Pasquier right on the live, which just made me sound like a complete numpty. But
well, we had it with, like in year 1, so 2013. It was Alex Espargaro, and then we sort of started calling him Aleix. I kept calling him Alex. Everybody kept saying it's Aleix. It's Alex. It's sort of is. I understand. Anyway, so then I started calling him Aleix, like under duress. Ooh, and then Colin Edwards joined the team. Colin was his teammate. Colin's mates with him, and Colin calls him Alex, and I'm like, see. He's his mate, and he calls him Alex. So you don't have to say it just like everybody else.
Right, at this point though, I do want to ask just quickly, because we've had you for enough time as well, and you've got to get to a family barbecue, so I'll ask you a couple more things for a little quickfire round. Not quite the same as yours, by the way, but I've got to ask you,
favourite drink?
whilst on the subject of pronunciations and everything.
Pronunciations? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, even I know that.
Okay. Paddock English. I want to have your perspective on that. So the Paddock English, either the language and the specific words that riders use in their debriefs, or even some of the accents which some of us Brits, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it sometimes as well, put on when they're speaking to Spaniards and Italians. What do you make of it? Do you have your own troubles with it?
Oh my God, I hate it. And when I catch myself doing it, because I do, I'm like, why are you talking like Cal Crutchlow all of a sudden? I'll be, yeah, for sure. Cal's the worst, though, isn't it? Cal is the worst.
Jack Miller is also guilty on occasion.
Jack's too.
But I can understand it. There was a kid when, I'd laugh if he actually ends up being a MotoGP fan and listening to this somehow. But there was a kid on the Spanish exchange who did the best sort of Spanish English, the Spanglish accent to the Spanish kids. And he would never speak the actual Spanish themselves, obviously against the whole point of an exchange. And he'd be like, Jose, you want to dance here? And things like that. And whenever I hear the riders say that, I just think of this young lad called James from my school, and I just think that's what it transforms into, basically, isn't it?
Just to be clear to everyone as well, we are not attacking the incredibly impressive level of English of non-native riders. We are attacking the native English speakers who, for some reason, forget their own language and make another one up.
But, I've been guilty of it as well, many times, I'm sure.
Oh, no, same. Spanglish now, sometimes, I'll translate something for, the other parts of my job, and you read it, you're like, yeah, that's fine. And then wake up the next day and read it again, and it just sounds like Google did it.
Yeah.
And it's like you lose track of what's going on.
Oh, hey, someone's ringing me, but can you still see me?
You've paused your video, but you've paused very beautifully in this. There you go, you found out.
But what I love about Cal, because obviously we know why Cal does it, because he's constantly around his team, so you've just ended up getting used to talking. Like, same with Jack. But I love when we interview Cal. We're English Cal. Come on, it's BT Sport. You can, and I'll go, how was today? And he'll go, oh shoot. Today in the moment, it's difficult. And you're like, oh my God, this is brilliant. It's like, come on, Cal. Let's get that, because he's from Coventry. Like, come on, Cal.
Well, Isle of Man and San Diego. No, I could be, and in fairness, I guess in some ways it can actually almost help them in when they're actually having debriefs and things like that to try and speak a little bit. Well, perhaps it does. I don't know. I'm not in the team, but
it's just trying to communicate clearly, innit? And if you strip away all the stuff that really you don't need in a language, however much we're laughing at it now, you just got to make your point, haven't you? So they must just get so used to doing that
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. One more thing.
It is funny, definitely.
One thing for me and Fran, which you won't have, Neil, but I'll say this before we move on to the quickfire round, and it makes us look a bit like wieners, really. Obviously, working for Dorna. I'm trying not to swear here. It's right if Neil swears, but I'm trying not to. But
I'm trying not to because I swear all through my podcast. It's like, nah.
Exactly. But obviously, me and Fran working for Dorna, living in Spain. We have to speak a lot of Spanish. The worst thing is when we've been in Spain or on the road for a long time, and then I go back to England and I go into a coffee shop or go for breakfast or something like that, and the waitress comes over and says, "What can I get for you?" And I say, "Café con leche, por favor." And then what can I say then? What do I say? Because I can't say, "Sorry, I live in Spain," because then she'll think, "All right, knob." You know,
I was just going to use that word. You just know they're thinking, knob.
What do you say? There's no way out of it to save yourself, because it's like, "Oh, sorry." You can't even say, "Oh, I'm just practicing my Spanish," because you look even worse.
Yeah, I've done the same. I lived in America on and off for 5 years, and I said, like, in front of my mates from Burnley, I went, "Oh, have you got a new cell phone?" And it was like, "What? You absolute idiot!
Oh no!
What a knob! Cell phone." So I got the beats, like.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a problem, isn't it?
It really
so
is.
I had to turn my mic off then, so you didn't record one of my horrific giggle fits. Because it's genuinely a problem. And once I go, I'll go, and it'll be like a good 20 minutes before I can cope with the subject again. So
right. So Neil, we got Lee go because you got a family barbecue first, but we do have a quick word association quickfire round because Kenwood Communications, lovely sponsors, do sponsor us for this particular segment.
You've gone Spanglish there again.
Yeah, see, this is the problem.
Am I going to get ideas for Gas It Out here for Man and Gav's podcast?
Well, you could
Absolutely.
do so because our quickfire rounds are either sort of one of two option questions. It's word association or whatever the other one is. I can't remember. We're thinking of getting fans' questions in, anyways. But this is just word association. So obviously, the first thing that pops to your head when we say this particular word, just say it.
Okay.
Try and keep it clean. So I'll start, and then Frank can follow on from that. So first one is Gavin.
Well, I was just going to say Emmett.
No.
I actually thought about this when I put that, and I was like, maybe we should say Gavin Emmett, but maybe that sounds too strange.
We're hoping for something soulful like friend,
Yeah.
Brother in arms.
Oh, so Gavin Emmett, I just think love. I do.
Oh.
Okay.
There you go. Right, next one. Daytona.
Scary.
The north of England for Word of Down.
The best.
Agree. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, Northerners.
Ducati.
Family.
Marquez.
Amazing.
Quartararo.
I was just going to say Young. But, yeah.
Young. Okay. Silverstone.
Great.
British Superbike.
Amazing.
Dovizioso.
Sound. My son's 12 years old, and we never argue about anything. Well, we do, but you know what I mean in general. Yeah. But when I say sound, he's like, oh.
Really? Why? Because he says
it.
Dad, don't say sound. It's so uncool. Do not say sound. I'm like,
oh no, really?
Because I say a lot.
Yeah. Because I'll go, yeah, so like Gavin, Gavin sound. Oh, Dad, don't say sound.
Oh no. Okay, well, we've all learned something there.
Yeah,
sound.
I say sound or noise as well is the other one. Obviously, with a hint of not being too serious, that I think that's actually making me cooler. But yeah, okay, well, sorry to your son for adding to that problem.
Sorry, Taylor.
Right.
Not that they will not be watching this.
Well, next one then. So back to word association. Rival.
See, then my instant thought is I don't have one.
Well, did you though? Who was?
Well, I'd probably say Walker. would be the one when I race. But like I thought, like if I think now, it's like I'm so happy not to have a rival. You know, like through your career, it's always stressful. You're always stressed. It's hard work, and you're like, no rival.
Just collaboration nowadays. Bit of a breather from it.
Yeah.
Right, what's the next one? Love. Please say Gavin Emmett.
I was going to say Victoria.
Oh, is she there?
Hey, she's gone out of the house as well now. She's gone for a walk.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Impressive.
Well, at the other end of the spectrum, hate.
Victoria. No. Hate, nothing.
Ah. Awesome.
Nice. Commentary. Or as I would actually normally say it, commentary.
Yeah, commentary. I was going to say... Well, I can't get a word in.
Nice.
I love it.
Okay, Rossi.
God.
Freedom.
Racing.
Competition.
I'm just laughing because it's racing. I know, it's like...
No, it's like...
Yeah.
It makes good sense.
I'm not very good at this, all right.
No, it's fine.
There's no good or bad in the word association. If we asked you for your greatest story and you told us about some trip to Sainsbury's, then maybe there's a good or bad scale to bring into it. But we're okay.
Last one,
final one then is winning.
It's the best.
Oh. Well, I'll tell you one thing there, actually. When we did that, I think we put that with Danny Pedrosa last week, didn't we? And he said peace. And I thought that was really nice as well.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, that was a good...
I'm not saying it's take the mic.
Look what I've got next to me. Right, I'm going to do a competition for you.
Go on.
You have to name these people really quickly.
Nelson Mandela.
Oh, wow, that's Michael Laverty.
Yes.
Wow. Why have you got that? Oh, for the show, I guess.
I've been doing my painting in the office, you know.
Susie Perry.
Yep.
Keith Ewan.
Keith.
Wait,
and this man who looks like he's got a big afro.
Oh, that's me when I've just showered. Minus the beard, obviously. Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh
I made some man from Burnley, Gary Fretwell.
Wow.
He's been sending them to me. What I've been doing on every show on BT, I put it in the background.
Do you know what I noticed that?
Not the one of me. But what I'm going to do is, I've done everybody now except Michael's. Michael's going to go on this Sunday.
Yeah.
And then on the last show's the weekend after, I'm going to stick them all together and have them as a collage behind me.
Oh, how nice.
Hey, gonna look out for that.
Well,
the one of you looks a little bit like Sebastian Vettel.
I thought the same.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Neil, really appreciate you for taking the time to be with us.
Pleasure.
Taking time out of your busy podcast schedule, really, to be honest. I mean, it's busier than us.
Actually, we've sort of had a week off because we did Colin Edwards about a week ago, and he's in the bag, and we did obviously Danilo Petrucci. So I don't know what we're going to do next actually, but it's actually because we've done 17 I think now or 18, and actually it's a lot because as you know, it's an hour and a half every time you do one, and you do a bit of prep, don't you, a little bit. So
it's bad, isn't it? I mean, we find it hard enough trying to do once per week, let alone you guys bumming out like 2.
Yeah, we're doing a couple a week, but it's not really hard work, but it's like it's almost you do run out of stuff to say, especially in lockdown. Because Gavin, we'd always have to start with a chat. What have you been up to then, Neil? Well, shock horror, not much. You know?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, everyone listening, make sure you go and subscribe to Gas It Out as well. I think you can find it everywhere, can't you? It's not.
Yeah, Gas It Out on it's the iTunes one.
Yeah.
And on iTunes, the iTunes one, Podbean, I think.
Apple Podcasts.
All right, Dad.
Get absolutes all that lot.
Do you know what, Neil? That is so sound. I really like that.
Sound. You're so sound.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
So, hope you enjoyed that episode of Lockdown Last on the Brakes. I think I yelled that a little bit loudly there. Sorry if I shocked you back to life. I think that was a good natter with Neil.
Yes, very all over the place, but good fun.
Yeah, hopefully you felt like you were sort of having a late afternoon summer beer rather than like you couldn't keep up and hated us for not asking the same question again.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
But before the episode started, we did ask you guys what you think, what your perception is about the MotoGP paddock. What do you think about how things have changed over the last 20 years or so? So we want to hear your perspective of that, so make sure you get in touch. Use the hashtag MotoGP podcast on Twitter if you're on there, and leave your comment on how you think the paddock's changed, the Grand Prix racing's changed, how your hair's changed, whatever. Or if not, if you're watching on YouTube, sorry for our faces, you can leave a comment below. But if you're going to leave a comment below, make sure you give us a thumbs up as well. That'd be muchly appreciated.
Yeah. Also be kind, because as you can see on a few of the other ones, we will reply.
Yeah.
But we will also listen.
No, exactly.
And feedback is appreciated.
That's what you and I are trying to do a bit more, isn't it? We'll try and get a bit more involved. We've already sent out, there was a Reddit thread asking for some feedback. So please do feel free to give us some constructive feedback. We've got no problems with getting in touch with people and replying as well. And but yeah, try and be nice. We're just people as well. But next week, Fran, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, we're looking to switch up the guests. It's going to be one of, well, a couple of different people it could be, couldn't it? But one of the options is a very, very well-known F1 legend, would you say?
I don't know what the F1 equivalent is of our official Hall of Fame, actually. I believe they do have one.
But he's not official, though, is he? But he's definitely...
But he is definitely a legend of the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's quite a lot of in-jokes I could give here to give it away. But I won't. There's a very obvious one, but I won't say that. But yeah, hopefully you'll be hearing quite an interesting conversation with someone a little bit left field, but massive MotoGP fan, and lots of different insights to give on that as well.
There's going to be one thing we do promise is, even if like some of the guests are changing from perhaps the usual roster that you're expecting from us, the chat about MotoGP is not going to change. That's
and about bikes. Don't worry.
Bikes, MotoGP. That's why it's a MotoGP podcast. That's why we're here.
We've not gone rogue. We've not decided to take the product, make it a car show. Don't worry. But then also, yeah, we hopefully get some pretty different perspectives and a few different accents, I think, if all of our plans come together as they are at the moment. Prepare your ears.
Yeah, quite. Well, without further ado, I guess we'll see you next week.